All right. Stranger Things just ended for me like half an hour ago. We're about half an hour from the new year. I cannot imagine anyone will be here, but that's okay. I don't get a chance to go live very often. So I just wanted to pop in and I guess talk about this shitty ass show and the ridiculous finale. I think it's probably one of those finales that I'll be in the minority for about a month. And then once the hype has died down and, you know, people take 2 seconds to think about anything, no one's going to rewatch it. Everyone will acknowledge that it was dog shit. And, yeah, it just wasn't a very good show. I was actually not expecting much. And the show just kind of went off the rails. Like, even further than I thought it would. And, you know, one of the biggest problems is the show wanted to have mass appeal, but they couldn't commit to being an adult show either. So it ends up just being an absolute shit show. Hey, what's up, Istad? Hey, Stevie. Yeah, I mean, honestly, Stranger Things, I would for sure recommend season one and then just stop. Just save yourself like 35 hours and call it there. Mr. Divine, oh, you're in California, aren't you? I was gonna say I thought you'd be out by now, celebrating the new year as a social person, unlike myself, obviously, who sat here and watched the finale with my wife, and now her and the baby are in bed. So I was like, oh, I'll hop on till about at least midnight, I guess, Eastern time, and just be the asshole that likes to shit on everyone's favorite stuff as usual. The I guess since it doesn't seem like anybody here has actually seen it, so I'll try not to say anything spoilery. But everything that Netflix gets made fun of was like in this series as a whole. Mr. Divine says this is his social network. All right. Yeah, I understand that. Um, but just all the girls do everything. The show, because they didn't kill anybody or they didn't want to kill anybody important over the course of the series, they you just end up with like 20 fucking characters that they don't know what to do with. There's actually characters that they forgot about. Why is the live chat not showing on screen? There we go. Fucking thing. Um, it was already popped out open. The window was for the chat, and I had to re-click it. But yeah, they have like 20 fucking characters, but they only have like 2 or 3 that they really care about. So you end up with that shit where they don't know what to do with like half the cast. And I said I'll keep it vague. So in very typical Netflix fashion. Oh my god, yeah. Yeah, Steve, it's that kind of shit all throughout the series, man. Um but in typical Netflix fashion, you know, the first season of the show was the 4 boys and 11. And then you had Winona Ryder, who's Joyce. She's the mom of the kid who gets stolen or kidnapped. And then you have Hopper, who's got a very good story. And the government is like the antagonist, kind of, but it's very supernatural thriller. Everyone had pretty tight arcs. Everyone had a very clear purpose. And then as the series went on, the show switched from two of the main guys' brothers to two of their sisters, and a couple of the moms started being way more involved, and it was just like it lost all of the initial appeal. And you could just tell they were like, well, we don't know what to do. So this season, the main character was the youngest sister of the guy who was the main character in the first season. And I actually didn't even know her name before this season, because she was like at the breakfast table one time or something. She like wasn't a character at all. And then this season, she was like the focal point. And yeah, Stevie said, what's up with that one guy kicking the demon thing? It was a Demogorgon or a Demo Dog, I think, while carrying that girl like it was a minor nuisance. And that's a huge problem for the series, is the monsters, sometimes they take out entire platoons of soldiers, like the special elite forces type. They get gunfire, they don't care. And then sometimes you have a drunk mom with a wine bottle fighting a monster. And you're just like, okay then. And then it's kind of crazy. Like the second half of the last season, they were like one of the main monsters for the whole series. And I don't think we saw one in the last 4 episodes. It's just that type of shit. And, you know, like the world building was terrible. The entire series takes place in this small town in Indiana. And at no point do they ever show like what the rest of the world thinks of everything going on. And in the 5th season, they have a quarantine. Like they're not supposed to be letting people go, but a whole bunch of people leave. The earth has split open in like a huge X shape, and they just throw metal plates over it and like call it a day. It's under military quarantine, and people are just living their day-to-day lives like no big deal. Like you can tell that they couldn't plan past one season at a time. And it really, like if you watch all 5 seasons and then were to go back and watch season 1, none of it makes sense now, because of they just had no care for any of the world building or thought or implications. They were just like, oh, this sounds neat, let's just throw some shit in. And you know, there's plenty of stories that they don't have every detail worked out as they write them. And, you know, if you're a careful, talented writer, you can do that. The Duffer Brothers are not. Like, season 4 ends, and I won't say why, but season 4 ends with the world, like, splitting open in this town. And then when season 5 starts, like, if you watch it consecutive, because, you know, there's 3 years in our time, so for most people, they probably didn't even rewatch it. They're just like, oh, okay. But if you watch it straight through like I did, season 4 ends with the world splitting in this town. And then season 5, they just throw metal plates over where the world splits. Say there's a quarantine, but nothing has actually changed. It's bizarre. Yeah. Yeah, Stevie says, do you remember the Hulk in 2003? That's the Eric Bana one, right? That movie was way too long. But he said he watched it again recently and he wish it was good because the soundtrack was good. I actually don't remember the soundtrack for that movie. I just remember thinking it was very long and very boring. And there was like CGI dogs that he fights. I don't remember shit about that movie. I mean, he's probably better than Mark Ruffalo. Istad says, what do you mean it doesn't make sense? The dude doesn't like girls, so it all comes together after 5 seasons. And like, you know, some of the stuff they do is, it's just like bad directing. Like, I don't know what the other way to say that is. I'll give you an example, because this isn't, like, if you haven't seen the show and there's no context, this isn't really a spoiler. But like there's supposed to be an emotional scene where part of the crew is through the wormhole thing or the upside down or whatever, and then part of it is waiting behind. And when they, obviously it's a generally happy ending. So when they come back through the wormhole, they radio in and they're like, "Hey, we're back." And he's just kind of joking. And the guy answering him is like, "Oh, is everyone okay?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, we're all here." And he's like, "Oh, good." And that's the type of scene that should be like super emotional, like very high stress. And it's just kind of like, "Oh, like yeah, we're all good." And there's a lot of those weird decisions. Like one of them, I'm trying to think if this is a spoiler or not. I guess probably no one who's here even cares if you haven't seen the show. But the main bad guy, they do a backstory for him, and they kind of do the thing where you're like, oh, he's maybe not in control of himself or whatever. But the way that they execute it is this guy is remembering when he got. You want spoilers? Okay, so Stevie, are you caught up then except for the finale? Because this has to do with Vecna. Yeah, Mr. Divine, I figured you don't care. You've been around for a while, so you seem like whatever with it. So they do a backstory for the main villain. And the way that they do it... Oh, you've only seen TikToks. Okay. So Vecna, they do a backstory for him, right? But the way they do it is you're seeing into his memories. So they do the thing where like the person is seeing their own memories and they're having like an emotional reaction to their memories, right? Which obviously you do in real life. It's a very easy way to convey how someone feels about their own past or whatever. So he gets kind of possessed, but sort of seems to enjoy it. But the way they do his reaction is he's going through this memory and like struggling to get through it. He's like really upset by it. And I feel bad for the actor because he does a great job. Like he's all over the place emotionally, like in a very good way. So instead of having him be like, because the way that works out is you find out that he wanted the power, he wanted to be evil, whatever. Fine, he's your bad guy. That makes sense. But so what they do is they have him like struggling to watch this memory and like emotional and crying and hesitating. And it's like, if you're going to do that, normally you would do that because they don't want to be evil. They don't want to be possessed. They feel bad about it. So if you're going to have him be like, oh, well, I chose this. I wanted to be bad. I wanted power, blah, blah, blah. Then you should have had that moment be like you think he looks upset, but then he like smiles, right? Or he looks pleased. Like this is a fond memory for him because this is when he went from weak to strong. Like that type of shit is just all throughout the series. And it's really jarring when they're trying to convey the serious moments in particular. And like the dialogue is really shit. And I'm not sure that's the type of thing that most people would just pick up on who don't watch movies that way. But I was sitting there with my wife and I was like, man, the way that they're talking, there's like no character stuff here. Can I answer it without any specifics? Do any mains die? Well, if I can't give any specifics, then it would be yes or no, right? Let me see. There's one kind of relevant death, and it was not a character that I gave a fuck about. I guess that's as vague as I can be without getting into details. And in that regard, the show is chicken shit. And that's a huge problem for the show too, is that you can have shows where no one dies, but it feels like there's stakes. But this show was not, it was not executed that way over the course of the whole series, not just this season. Like, it was way too, it was way too ballless. It was way too kid friendly. And it did make the stakes feel kind of like, like, who cares? Even going into the finale, they do. I don't want to say that. That is kind of spoilery. But there's parts where you think like, okay, like maybe someone will die, but not really. There was no moment where I was like, oh, like we're gonna lose somebody here, you know? Because and the formula for the show, if you watch it, you'll see is they kind of bait a lot. And it's tough with TV, right? Because in a movie you can do one fake out, have it be like a pretty intense scene, and that's that's fine. Like your hour and a half or 2 hours is up. But with a TV show, when you've got 8 hours to fill, or I guess probably more like 6 or 7 for most of the seasons, you're like, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna keep faking deaths? Like you need to kill somebody at some point. And this show just never really had the balls, and you can tell. Like there's never a point in the show, I don't think, where you're like, oh man, like my favorite character might die. Because even the characters that you could think that, they do it with so many times that you're like, fuck you. Like, I'm not buying this bullshit. So it's just one of those things where it's like once you figure out the tone, it kind of undercuts all of the stress or the stakes or whatever you want to say. So it's just not that kind of show. And that's what I was saying earlier when I said the show wants to have its cake and eat it too. Is like it wants you to be treating it like it's an adult show and take it seriously, and it thinks that it has something to say. And the first season it does. But then after that, no. It's like kind of Goonies with a little bit of loose, soft sci-fi. And then of course, you start getting explanations for things in the final season, like the other dimension and how they're all tied together. And just none of it makes sense. None of it's really explained in any kind of satisfactory way. Like if you were to ask me to like rank Stranger Things, which I'm probably going to make a video on this where I'm a bit more elaborate. For me, I would say it has one like very good to great season of television. The second season is the first season, but shittier and more boring because all the mystery is gone. The third season is an abomination. One of the worst drop-offs between seasons, I think, even though 2 is very mediocre. 4 is the one that actually people say brought it back. And I don't agree at all. I thought 4 had like one good character and his arc. And then the rest of the season is like either killing time or just retarded. And then 5, I mean, you could almost watch the finale of season 5 and not actually watch the season and not really be missing much. Like there is a lot of just filler and interpersonal drama, and they don't want to really commit to anything because they don't want to offend anybody. And I guess if you guys have seen the memes about the gay scene, people don't care about gay scenes for the most part. But that was done so ham-fisted and just clumsily that even my dad, who like doesn't give a shit about that stuff, was like if I had known that the whole show was building up to this scene, I wouldn't have fucking watched it. Because essentially in the second to last episode, you're building up to your like world-ending fight. Yeah, yeah. Mr. Divine said, "I'm gonna be a dad." It really it was at that level, Divine. Like it was bad because you've got 20 minutes left in your penultimate episode, your second to last episode. They're literally talking about saving the world, worlds colliding, interdimensional battle, and the whole thing stops for like 15 minutes for this kid to talk about that he's gay. And the show, for whatever godforsaken reason, decided to be like pretend like we didn't already know. Yeah. Stevie says he saw that scene a bit ago, and it's one of those scenes you pray ends more quickly. But it's what makes it weirder is if you've watched the show and paid attention, it's very obvious that Will is gay from the beginning. Like they have a line in there where Winona Ryder, who's his mom, says like, yeah, his dad used to call him a queer. And I can't remember if somebody calls him a fag at some point also. So like it's not a hidden thing. And then in one of the Divine says gay in the 80s, yikes. Yeah, and then later on, one of his friends actually, they're having a kid argument about how they spend their time and girls and blah blah blah. And the friend actually says, we've always known that you don't like girls. So like none of this it's not groundbreaking, it's not surprising. And the timing and the way they did it literally stops the entire show for this big conversation. And if I remember right, and I saw this as a meme, I don't know if it's true, but one of the characters, Steve, has never actually even talked to Will. Like he's seen him and he knows his brother, but like they're not like friends, and he's in the room for it. And it's like, what the hell are we doing here? Like, and there's plenty of shows that have gay characters. Yeah, Stevie says no way they said the F slur in Stranger Things. I could be mistaken, but I thought in the first season they actually did have maybe like one of the bullies say it, or like one of those type things where they're like, oh, fag type, whatever. And it's weird too because within the show, they actually do handle it in a way that I thought was generally tasteful and like not bludgeoning you, but very obvious what's happening. Like when they have his friends say, "We all know that you don't like girls." Like I think that's a fine way to have two boys deal with it who are fighting or having an argument. And then in one of the later seasons, I think it's season 4, they're around each other a lot, and they do the thing where the gay kid is looking at his friend, but he's kind of like forlorn or sad because he knows like my friend is never going to feel about me the way that I feel about him. But they don't come out and say it. It's not like a big emotional thing. It's just part of his character, and it's like, okay, fine. But then in season 5, they tie his powers to his gayness. Like him coming out as gay allows him to tap into his psychic powers. And then they even stop in the last episode. How long am I going to be live? I'm probably going to wrap up after this level. I don't want to stay on too long. I just wanted to kind of do a thing for New Year's and to bitch about this Stranger Things show because it's just crazy how overrated it is. But even in this finale, right? They're in the middle of like a thing where they're like building up to the final battle. They're worried that their world's about to get destroyed. And it stops again for the guy that the gay kid obviously likes to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't there for you. I didn't realize you were gay. I forgot season 3 happened. Like, it's like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, we've got two hours left in this show. Probably an hour and 45 minutes at that point. And there's like a million plot lines that aren't explained, that aren't wrapped up. And this is how we're spending time. It's like, you're apologizing for not reading his mind that he wanted to fuck you. Are you kidding me? Like, it was just done so clunkily compared to the prior seasons where, the dad is like a deadbeat, but he calls him queer. And you're like, okay, like, maybe he's effeminate. Maybe the dad's just an asshole. Either way, it kind of works. And then you have later on, Mike says, we all know that you don't like girls. And you're like, okay. So like, they're aware that he's different, but they're not going to come out and have this big gay coming out party. And then the show just keeps escalating. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then, it's not even just that one. Then they included a lesbian, and her girlfriend became like a fairly central part of the story, when it's like, who is this bitch? You guys have a lot to wrap up in 6-7 hours, and we're introducing a lesbian relationship to talk about. Yeah, Stevie says it's honestly better if he just never came out, because we all knew. And that's the thing too, is like, it was very, very obvious. There was no need to even have that scene. I don't know. It just, I don't know. I think people, even if they don't like something, like if you find gay people gross or whatever, right? I think most people will be like, okay, I don't like it, but if it's your private life, you do your thing. Especially when you talk about younger people. I think you're not too worried about gay people getting tarred and feathered or anything, right? Like, there's not going to be a witch trial for the homos or anything. So it's just, you don't need. Did I turn the difficulty down, or what the fuck is going on with this game? No, it's on insanity. That's so weird. So, I think it's perfectly fine to just kind of allude to it and whatever. Like, you don't have to go crazy and lecture people and talk about how you need acceptance for your lifestyle and whatever else. And this show just, I don't know, maybe this show thought they were actually in the 80s and they were like method writing. I don't know. I mean, the show gets like the 80s aesthetic right. It gets the vibes. It gets the music. But the writing is... Hey, what's up, Fluffy? Are you saying the final season or the 4th season? Fluffy said he doesn't think the problem... He thinks the season opened strong and then went downhill. And the ending was just mid. I think the opening... Oh, Happy New Year's for the East Coasters. Mr. Divine, I guess, happy 9 o'clock. I think you're in California. I can't remember if Istad. Yeah, Istad's in New York, so he's on the East Coast too. He might have fallen asleep. Old bitch. No, I think the show opened poorly and then just got worse. And also, something that's a huge mistake that a lot of stuff does, and I don't get why shows do this, is yeah. So Mr. Divine, it's 9 o'clock. I'll try not to spoil the new year for you. Hey Fluffy, I'm doing all right. I hope you're doing all right too. What I was going to say about the final season though was a huge problem is with Vecna. In season 4, you had him get beat twice. So, you had your final boss villain get beat twice, and then he's also your final boss villain in season 5, where he gets beat like 3 more times. He's a cool, like, aesthetically, he's super cool. The actor does a really good job. I was saying earlier, I feel bad for him because I feel like he was wasted. But the way that you establish a villain like that is you have him come in and fuck up a main character. And it just isn't that type of show. So what they tried to do in season 4 is have him come in and kill a couple nobodies, but that just doesn't, like, he looks cool and he's a good actor, But it doesn't help lend itself to this really big, intimidating final boss. And especially when you combine that with giving your main characters plot armor in season 4, which the show does a lot of. And season 5, frankly. And then, this would be a spoiler, so I won't say that part. Yeah, they just make some bad decisions. Like, and this is what I was saying earlier about the world building being so bad, is that because they had no plan, they couldn't build up to anything. So like 11, she uses her powers in season 1 as a nosebleed, and you're like, okay, it's a strain on her. But that doesn't go anywhere. Now it's like, oh, she, instead of like flipping a car, she like tilts a van and she's also bleeding. Or she like, holds it in because she has to go to the bathroom a little bit too much and has a fucking nosebleed. So they didn't do anything with her powers. They didn't scale it. Like, I think it would have been a really smart move to scale her powers up, so she's doing the same things but much more easily. And even if you want to include the part where she gets a blockage and all that, that can still work. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Fluffy's comparing the Stranger Things boss to Game of Thrones, where you're like, he had one good scene and then you get rid of him. And yeah, that's what I mean is, with a villain like that, you want to build him up. What's up, Mark? Like, you want to build him up, you want to make him intimidating. And even if he doesn't go on a big killing rampage of all your main characters, like, you can still have him not lose, right? Like, you can have him show up and they escape by the skin of their teeth type thing. And you're like, oh my God, we're lucky we got away, or, whatever the case is. But when you have the dude show up in 2 seasons and he loses like 5 fucking times, it's like, all right, well, he's just this viney looking bitch then. And there's a lot of stuff like that I think is a huge problem. I was talking about it earlier with the Demogorgons. Sometimes they rip a soldier apart or all the Russian prisoners apart in season 4 in like 2 seconds. And then you've got them losing fights to wine bombs and another like terrible decision. And they introduced this in season 2. And I was like, man, they really need to undo this. Is when they show you this tentacle from the monster in a tank and they burn it, it burns the entire monster everywhere because it's part of this hive mind. And it's like, okay, well, now you have a villain that you can just cancel his powers anytime you want. Like, keep his tentacle in a fucking tank and a lighter, and he's a pussy. Like they really needed to adjust that, and they never did. And not only did they not adjust it, they just reuse it over and over. So they're like, okay, like, we'll set fire to the weaker parts, so then we can attack the stronger parts. And it's okay, so you're just nerfing your big bosses. Absolutely retarded. Like, how do they have a room of writers, I'm assuming, and no one's like, hey, like, this does not make our boss scary or our antagonist scary. Yeah, Divine says you can't overpower the strength of friendship. You're joking, but the finale was like half a step above that, honestly. Like, they were almost there. And Fluffy says, you're telling me teens and kids were fine attacking that Godzilla? Like, come on. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is, visually, I thought the final boss looked pretty good. I mean, especially considering it's a streaming show and not like a big budget box office thing. Of course, they did spend $500 million on it, so, budget wise, they're probably spending more, frankly. But that's another thing too that's like completely beyond retarded. Is you have the military in the whole final season, they do nothing. They figure out nothing. They stop nothing. They're just kind of there to be assholes and like a minor inconvenience. for accessing the other, the other dimension. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how you can have people getting paid this much money to write and just not get just basic shit like generally correct. Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's a good point too. Fluffy says you can tell they were trying to set up for a spinoff, which just pisses me off. I asked my wife that exact same thing. I was like, is that what they're doing here? Like with this last scene, because the last scene, I mean, this is like a very minor spoiler, is a recreation of the first scene, except with the younger siblings. And they, it's, I told my wife, I was like, do you think they're going to call it Strangest Things and just make it in the 90s? Like, they're going to give them the fucking 90s garb and the grunge outfits and the mullets and music. They'll move them somewhere else and just redo the same shit. I mean, because, it's an interdimensional world, right? So you can do whatever you want. I mean, they clearly have no rules. Yeah. Yeah, Fluffy says that the doctor woman, who was Linda Hamilton, I believe is who you're referring to, could not be in the show and nothing would change. Yeah. Her character would just be like, hey, I'm an insufferable cunt. and that was her whole character. What's up, Hyperplex? He says, if they do that, who's the new villain? Well, that's the genius thing, is you can just create another upside down or abyss or whatever you want to call it giant monster and say like, oh, like you guys beat the one, but he had a brother or whatever. Or he was the knight, but here's the queen. Like, I mean, you can do whatever you want, right? This is not like, they didn't establish any hard rules. They didn't explain anything. So we don't even know anything about this other world. Of course, they were only there for like 20 minutes, went in to take care of the big boss and, rolled out. I mean, it was like a fucking field trip. Yeah, Fluffy says, and then they'll do another spinoff for the 2000s and call it Things Have Gotten Really Strange. Oh, yeah, the last episode pissed you off. Yeah. Yeah, and Hyper says it's true. It really is a never-ending story. Well, and that's the thing, too, right? Is like if you tell an actual story where you say, okay, like this is how this other world works, this is their structure, this is their population, you can, like, then you have like a set of rules and like, this is what it means to win. Like in Lord of the Rings, when they destroy the ring, they've won. Like that's very definitive. It's very clear, right? In Star Wars, when you blow up the Death Star, when you kill the Emperor, you haven't won one because sci-fi is different. It's bigger and there's remnants and blah blah blah. But like your main part of the story is done. Yes. Oh, Stevie says, "What I don't understand is why the show looked worse with a higher budget." I actually thought it looked pretty good for most of the season. There was definitely some shots in there where I was like, "Whoa." I guess you guys were rushing the CGI team on that one, huh? I also don't really like how they skimmed over that Vecna as a puppet. Well, yeah, and that's what I mean is like none of that stuff was explained with Vecna and the other big boss. Like they didn't do any world building to the point where you can literally just make up any story and then just kind of throw it in wherever you feel like, because everything was so vague, everything was so unexplained. There was no, I don't want to say there was no stakes, but like, here's a really good example of like how fucked up the writing is. Is when 11 fights Vecna, can anyone tell me who's stronger? Like, can you tell me what their abilities are, what their powers are, how strong they are? Like, there's nothing they don't take the time to show anything. They don't explain anything. All of that stuff is just deliberately left like, we're going to leave it kind of open and we'll use it later. So, like, one of the things they introduced in season 4, right, was these bats. God, you guys are getting fucking wild for the new year, huh? Hyper says in the epilogue, I wish they'd gone over Vicky and Robin's relationship a bit more. Maybe even Enzo's. Yeah, exactly. Like, the whole Russian thing, like, this was an international thing, and just no one outside of Hawkins knows. And then Fluffy says, there wasn't a single moment where my ass was clenched, if that makes sense. And that's kind of what I'm getting at when I say there's no stakes. What's up, Mackenzie? You're the only one who thought it was great. I'm sure I'm in the minority. I think most people will like it. But I just, this whole season was incredibly frustrating. And even the stuff at the end that's supposed to be like the nice, wholesome scenes, like where they have the group of the older 4 on the rooftop, and they're all like, oh, like, you know, we're all friends. Let's meet up again once a month for the rest of our lives. Like, even that kind of scene, which I think is a good concept, is just so unearned that you don't really feel anything. Because, you know, in the same episode, an hour earlier, they had 2 of the characters say, I don't like you. And the other one says, yeah, I don't like you either. But then you cut, and then they're friends having beer on a rooftop, wanting to meet up for the rest of their lives together. And 2 of them had been dumped by the same girl. So, like, what? 2 of them had been dumped by the same girl, and 1 had been rejected by the other girl. I'm not saying that they couldn't be friends, but, like, you know, you gotta do some work to make that relatable or believable, right? Oh yeah, Stevie says it's sad that no one wants to call out Millie's performance. Yeah, I thought they got pretty unlucky with the kid actors. I thought Lucas was good, Mike was good, Dustin I think is good too, but he should probably go like the Danny McBride route just because of how he looks. Honestly, like he should just go into comedy and just be the asshole. But Will was rough. Millie Bobby Brown was rough. I thought Jonathan and Nancy were kind of rough for the older kids. You know, Robin was okay. I think she did like the quirky, fun girl, like fine. Steve was good. I think Steve's very charismatic. I thought Vecna, I mean, he's a pretty established actor anyway. But like the last episode, I was like, man, he's given like a great performance, and they're just fucking it up. I think when a show with dark topics has a happy ending, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying, but the tone of the show is never heavy. So I don't think it needed to have like a dark ending. But, you know, if it wants to be taken seriously, at some point you do have to, like, the show has to take itself seriously. I think having the military there and just be perpetually useless it makes the whole thing a comedy. Having all the kids there, like they're figuring everything out, right? Like the adults never figure shit out. Like Hopper and Joyce, they didn't know what to do with the last 3 seasons. I mean, like, and when like Winona Ryder is obviously a good actor. Hopper, I'm blanking on his name right now. Was very good for the role. And they were like, oh, we don't know what to do with you, so we're gonna stick you on these like bullshit side quests, or your character is just gonna repeat shit that other people said. Like they were lost with so many characters. And that's the thing too, right? Is like you could have done a thing where Winona Ryder or Joyce like saved her son the first 2 seasons. You don't know what to do with her, so you kill her off in a really impactful way season 3, and now you're like, oh shit, like the main characters can die, and you've gotten rid of a character that you don't know what to do with because their arc is complete. But this show didn't have the balls for it. How did I react when Derek told Vecna to suck a fat one? I laughed. I thought Derek was maybe the funniest part of the final season. Like, and that's a problem too, is they brought in characters who were pretty good actors and then either killed them or they didn't have enough time. Like I thought Billy was a good actor, but they didn't really give him that much to do. I thought Eddie was a good actor. Obviously, his story is like a 1 season type thing. Derek, they didn't bring until season 5, but he was a funny little fat kid. So, you know, I mean, like, talent was not the issue on screen. I thought most of the casting was good. They got a little bit unlucky with the main group that 2 of the 5 couldn't act for shit. Yeah, yeah. Fluffy says Holly was the best actress in the whole show, and she's 12. Well, it does help that she had all the screen time, to be fair. But yeah, I think if I had to pick anybody, I would say that probably her and Sadie Sink are like, they will have good careers after Stranger Things. Everyone else, I think, is up in the air. Millie Bobby Brown and what's his name, Schnapp, the kid that plays Will. Like I don't see having a career. Lucas, I think Mike, I think already has one. He's been in It and stuff. Dustin, I think if he goes comedy, I think he could do pretty well. Yeah, Stevie says the actor is supremely talented. Talking about the villain. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is like Vecna in season 4 and 5 kind of stole the show, both in human and monster form or alien form or whatever you want to call it. Like, he was really good. Yeah, it's just frustrating. But I don't want this to go too long. I just want to do the one level and kind of talk about this show. Wish everybody a happy new year. I haven't streamed since the birth of my kid, so it's been 6 months. I actually looked before I started this stream. I think my last one was the end of June. So I just got a lot going on right now with regular life stuff and trying to get ready for trying to get some certifications for work and shit. But yeah, I'll maybe if I'm need a break from studying or something, I'll try to see if I can squeeze some more live streams in. But you know, I just at this point it's just kind of when I can. Yeah. So happy New Year to you guys. Hopefully 2026 is better media wise, because man, when I did my full 2025 review, I was like, holy shit, everything this year was bad. Yeah, Fluffy. I'm not gonna say what you just said because it's a spoiler, but I completely agree. It's just that's what I'm saying. Is just like the decisions from a broad level were so bad. Like they spent 5 seasons turning Nancy into fucking Rambo. Are you kidding me? Fuck you. Like Jonathan was just dragged around by the nose. He had a completely useless character after season 1. All that stuff. Like all those characters you don't know what to do with. You gotta kill off or do something. Give them a new arc. No, I don't care. I don't care that you said it. I just don't want to say it because I was getting a little bit more specific. Just in case. I mean, I've said a lot this stream already, so. Oh, Stevie says, every time I think of the Red movie with Dwayne Johnson, I forget the name and I still get mad. I think it's Red 1, right? Uh-oh. Divine says 2026 is going to be worse. I respect the pessimism. China's going to pop off, huh? Oh, yeah, that's interesting because Fluffy says he thought they were trying to make Nancy like Ripley. See, I thought Rambo. Her hair looks just fucking like it. Oh, Bobcat, you came in just as I was wrapping up. Yeah, and you know what? I think you're going to be in the majority. Certainly for the near future. This is definitely one of those things where I'm curious to see how it ages. I think that in probably a month, maybe 2, Stranger Things will never be talked about again. People will rewatch season 1 and nothing else. I don't think all the other seasons are going to age well. And they got by on the charisma of the actors, the chemistry of the crew, and the 80s nostalgia. So we'll see. But, you know, if you liked it, that's cool. I really don't. I don't begrudge anybody for liking it. The only time I begrudge people for liking stuff is when they insult me and say that if I got it, I would like it. I got a lot of that on my Dave Chappelle video. Well, that's true. Okay, Fluffy might be convincing me. He's saying that Nancy's style was Ripley even down to the ammo belt, and it fits the timeline. That's true. Yeah, I'll have to look again. Cause see, I think the thing is, I felt like Ripley still looked like tough but feminine, and I felt like Nancy looked masculine. As masculine as an anorexic girl can look. Oh God, yeah. Mr. Devine said he's curious how Millie Bobby Brown ages. She's like what, 21, I think, and he says that she already looks 34. I don't get all this Botox, or not the Botox, the cheek fat suction shit they're all doing to these girls that are like under 30. They shouldn't be doing anything to their fucking faces until you're like 40. But anyway, I don't want to keep going on tangents here. I'll fucking be up all night. So you guys have a good new year. Divine, you've still got 2.5 hours of yours, so I hope you make it. But for me, it's 12:20, so shockingly, I did make it past midnight. But I'll see you guys. I don't know when my Stranger Things video will come out, because it's gonna be the whole series. And I do at least want to touch on each season. Hey, what's up, Muhammad? I'm wrapping up, even though you're showing up now. I also want to do one about Fallout, because that show is another just disjointed mess, being carried by great performances again. I mean, Walton Goggins, you got Macaulay Culkin showing up. Ella Purnell she does a good job, but they made her character regress completely. Huh. I don't want to read that just because I did try to avoid being specific with spoilers, but Bobcat said they thought the finale was very paint by numbers, except for one of the deaths. And see, I think that death was a fake out, so I wouldn't even call it bold. Like they took all the time to undo it. So they either wasted half an hour or they undid the bittersweetness of the ending that you're talking about. But who knows? Maybe the Duffer Brothers will come out and say something tomorrow and give clarification. But all right, I'll see you guys. For future videos, I do want to do a Stranger Things one. I do want to do one for Fallout for the first 3 episodes of season 2. There's a couple anime shows I want to talk about. What's up, Yummy? You showed up right as I'm wrapping up too. Yeah, you guys had a bit of bad timing, but that's all right. Oh yeah, well yeah, Fluffy, that's a good point too. Yeah, you guys are giving me stuff to think about. But Yummy, yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. It's a really lame way to do a villain. Just bad decisions. But what did I say? Oh, Stranger Things, Fallout. There's a couple anime shows I want to talk about. I'm debating doing a response video to this guy that I thought made a really retarded and kind of racist video. That's not normally my thing, so I'm still deciding if I want to do that or not. But yeah, we'll see what I feel like, I guess. I don't think there's shit coming out for movies, so probably nothing on that end. But you guys have a good one. Stay safe and don't, drive if you've been drinking. And I mean, I imagine if you're listening to me, you're drinking at home, so I guess that's fine. Don't go out and get more. All right, I'll see you guys.